What if the oldest question in philosophy is still the sharpest tool we have for living well today? Socrates didn't write a single handbook, and yet his questions echo through every modern decision. From the quiet hour of a morning routine to the loud headlines that flood our feeds. He left us with a method, not a doctrine. A way to think that makes us slower to assume and faster to see. In a world that prizes certainty and speed, 9 lessons from Socrates offer a counterbalance. A compass that asks us to examine not just our beliefs, but the very act of believing. Our first lesson is simple, yet destabilizing. Question everything, especially your own certainty. Socrates delighted in proving himself wrong, not to win an argument, but to arrive at a closer approximation of truth. In today's context, where you can find a counterclaim with a single tap, this habit becomes a radical act of humility. Before you defend your favorite stance, pause. Name the assumption you're relying on. Then test it against a counterexample. Then listen for the blind spots that show up when you're not looking. The goal isn't victory, it's clarity. The quiet feeling that your mind isn't a closed room, but a workshop. Lesson 2 shifts from belief to inquiry. The examined life is not a luxury, but a necessity. Socrates argued that a life unexamined is a life half-lived. Because your choices are not just outcomes, they shape your character. In modern life, examined living asks, what am I choosing when I choose productivity over presence, efficiency over care, certainty over learning? It's a daily audit. What did I fear? What did I neglect? What did I pretend not to notice? The payoff isn't board. It's freedom to change your mind when the world changes around you rather than clinging to a reputation you never earned. Lesson 3 demands precise language. Define your terms before you argue. If you mistake the words for the thing, you'll argue forever about shadows. Modern debates are full of fuzzy terms: success, happiness, fairness, identity that masquerade as universals. Socrates would say, press for a concrete definition, then test it with examples that stretch it to the limit. When you slow down to clarify, you deprive rhetoric of its power and invite reason to enter the room. Communication becomes not a theater for performances, but a Lesson 4 invites balance. Seek the middle path, avoid extremes. Our culture loves black and white narratives, the heroic ethicist, the unyielding skeptic, the pure rationalist. Socrates teaches that virtue lies in proportion, in the wise use of forces we can command and forces we must resist. In personal life, this looks like choosing courage when it matters, but restraint when it would profit from impulse. In work, it means sharpening decisiveness without sacrificing nuance. The middle path isn't indecision. It's a disciplined calibration. Lesson 5 reframes courage. It isn't the loud act that draws applause. It's choosing what truly matters when fear is loudest. Socrates asked for the better argument, not the easiest escape. In modern terms, that means showing up to conversations that hurt, to relationships that require honesty, to decisions that threaten comfort. True bravery is thoughtful endurance, standing by a principle not because it's popular, but because it's true, even if it costs you something transient or small. Lesson 6 is stark. Admit ignorance. The moment you declare, I know enough, you shut the door on growth. Socrates wore his ignorance like a badge because it protected him from pretension and kept him curious. In a world of endless content and ready-made opinions, admitting you don't know is not weakness. It's a permit to learn. It lets you ask better questions, seek better mentors, and choose better actions. The antidote to certainty fatigue is a daily practice of admitting, I don't fully see this yet. Lesson 7 champions dialogue over debate. Socrates didn't seek to win arguments. He sought to refine shared understanding. In teams and families, conversation often devolves into who is right and who gets to win. The Socratic method offers a kinder engine. Ask questions that illuminate assumptions. Listen for the quiet contradictions. and let the conversation move toward a synthesis that neither side could have produced alone. When you practice dialogue, you don't merely exchange positions, you cultivate trust that makes difficult ideas possible. Lesson 8 reframes power. Reason is a compass, not a weapon. In our era, information is a weapon that can shield certainty or split communities. Socrates reminds us to use reason to illuminate, not to dominate. That means checking our own biases, recognizing the limits of our data, and resisting the urge to reduce humans to labels. Reason as compass invites responsibility. You steer not to win, but to bring clarity to a tangled truth, to respect the dignity of those who disagree, and to let evidence travel where it must. SFX, Heartbeat, 0. 8 Lesson 9 treats time as a teacher. Knowledge ages, but wisdom grows in patient practice. Socrates didn't cram facts. He practiced humility long enough to catch the tremors of pride as they shake a mind. In modern life, that translates to deliberate habit formation, a nightly reflection, a weekly conversation with someone wiser, a monthly re-examination of goals in light of what the world has shown you. Time rewards what persists when comfort yields to curiosity and when you tend your inner life as carefully as your outer ambitions. The 9 lessons are not boundaries or prescriptions. They're a toolkit for steady thinking in a noisy age. They ask you to slow down enough to see what you're really doing, and to act in ways that align with a deeper sense of self and a more truthful map of the world. The paradox at the heart of Socrates' method is this: to live freely. You must first admit how little you truly know, and then use that admission as a lever to act more wisely. So how would your life change if you carried these questions not as ideas to imitate, but as practices to live by? Question the certainty you carry into decisions. Examine the life you're leading one day at a time. Define your terms with brutal honesty. Move through extremes toward a measured, deliberate center. Courage becomes choosing what matters over what is easy. Admit what you don't know and invite others to co-create the truth. Dialogue becomes your default, not your last resort. Let reason be your compass, a compass checked against evidence and humility. And treat time as a teacher whose lessons arrive only through patient effort. If Socrates woke up in a world of notifications and noise, he would likely start with a simple ritual: pause, ask, listen. He'd test his own beliefs against new data, then adjust. He'd welcome discomfort as the sign that growth is underway. He'd choose not to persuade for the sake of winning, but to illuminate for the sake of understanding. In that spirit, these 9 lessons become more than a list. They become a way to live with sharp attention, to move with purpose, and to hold ourselves to a standard that doesn't flinch at complexity. So, if you carry one takeaway from this talk, let be this: the path to wiser living is not louder certainty, but quieter inquiry. It's not what you think, but how you think it, and how ready you are to rethink tomorrow. And in that humility, you may discover a surprising freedom, the freedom to choose less, but choose better, to pause more, listen longer, and finally act with a clarity that feels almost scandalously rare in a world that moves at the speed of screens. The conversation continues whenever you decide to ask the next question, to test the next assumption, to seek the next small, quiet truth. Socrates didn't finish a lecture. He started a practice. If you let this practice begin here right now, you'll be closer to living a life that matters, not because you have all the answers, but because you keep asking the right ones. So, if you carry one takeaway forward, let it be a commitment to the value of small questions. Not every inquiry becomes a revolution, but every pause to name a presumption tilts the axis toward wisdom. Make a date with doubt. A weekly check-in where you test one belief against a counterexample, one habit against a kinder standard. Let disagreement become a doorway, not a battlefield. And when you fail, which you will, confess it with quiet honesty and move on with greater care for the next choice. The 9 lessons become an open-handed map for daily practice. Use it to reframe failure as data, not as defeat. To treat time as a scarce resource, you invest in clarity rather than noise. SFX, heartbeat, 0. 5. Ask the next question.